Welcome everyone to Building a Creative Mindset, where over the next 3 weeks you will experience 3 types of mini activities during this creative thinking module. This short video will introduce 2 of them, metaphors and analogies, and another one called what if questions. Now, why are we working with metaphors and analogies? Well, there are 2 primary reasons. Number 1, it will give us a chance to practice the sub-skills of making connections and changing perspectives. And number 2, we will be using metaphors and analogies later in the module as part of one of the techniques in creative problem solving. And here we have our second type of mini activity, the what if question. So why should we practice answering what if questions, you might ask? Well, it turns out that this kind of question is a natural way to exercise our imagination. You're setting your brain free to come up with as many possible answers or consequences as it can. When we measure creativity, this dimension of creativity is called fluency. So let's take a look at an example of each type. Each activity has 3 parts. We'll first look at metaphors, analogies. Here we see part 1 is where you guess the topic of the metaphors that you will write in part 2. Look at the 3 words with blanks in front of them. Blank dive, blank rocket, and blank scraper. Each of these blanks is a 3-letter word, and that 3-letter word will be your topic. So you should guess what that word is. It says in red just above that you have 30 seconds or less. At the end of about 30 seconds, you should go on to part 2, even if you couldn't guess part 1, because part 2 is the most important part of the activity. For this example, we see that sky is the word that goes in the blanks. So we have skydive, skyrocket, and skyscraper. As we go into part 2, we now know that our topic is sky, and you're going to have about 2 minutes for this. As we start this, I'd like to just give you an example of a metaphor. Take the statement, KFUPM is hell. Now, we all know it's not actually hell, but by that statement, you get a very good idea of what some people think KFUPM is like. But here, our task is make metaphors, analogies for this. Sky is like blank. So you should fill in the blank with as many words as you can. I've written 5 words here. You can do 5 or 10 or even 15. The more you do, the more practice you're getting. And, like I was explaining before, the greater your fluency in creativity. So write as many words for the blank as you can in this section. So let's continue with our example and go to part 3. Oh, part 3 is trivia time. So here's an interesting way to end the activity. A little trivia to test your general knowledge of life. But it's not as random as that. Each trivia question is related to the topic of that day's activity. You should take about 30 seconds for this. By the way, the answer for each trivia question will be in the next day's activity. So here's an example. The edge of space is where the International Space Station and other satellites are. How high above the Earth is that? You have 3 choices, and here the answer is C, 62 miles. Okay, that is the end of the metaphors, analogies example. Okay, let's take a look at an example of activity type 2, the what if questions. Part 1, again, is going to be guessing the topic for the what if question. Again, takes 30 seconds or less. Here we see, read the 3 clues and guess the topic of the what if question. Okay, the clue 1, it cools us down. 2, it can help boats move forward. And 3, it gives us clean energy. What is the topic? If you guessed wind, you have won $64,000. Okay. By the way, if you don't get the answer, don't worry. It will become obvious in part 2. So here, the next part, part 2, use your imagination and write down as many possibilities as you can to this question. And here's the what if question. What if there was no wind? Okay, try to take 2 minutes. And just to give you an example of some answers that I came up with in those 2 minutes, these are possibilities. And you might notice that some of them might make sense to you. Some of them might not make sense to you because they're kind of personalized to whoever answers the question. Okay, so it looks like I came up with 10 or 12 answers here. Any number is okay. You'll find that after you do 2 or 3 of these what if questions, then you're going to get more and more answers. That's just natural because your brain becomes used to answering what if questions, and you are able to more quickly access different parts of your brain and different bits of information stored in your brain. So that's part 2. And we come to our final part of our what if questions example. This is part 3, trivia time again. And again, you'll take about 30 seconds or so. Here you will guess the answer to the trivia question. This is a good example. What is the primary reason or cause of the wind? A, the uneven heating of the earth by the sun. B, the tidal pull of the moon on the earth. Or C, the earth spinning on its axis. What do you think? Well, I'm sure you know. It is A, the uneven heating of the earth by the sun. And as with the other activities, the answer to the trivia questions will come in the following day's activity. So you now have examples of 2 of the activities you will be doing. The third activity will be in a separate video coming very, very soon. Stay tuned. And so a thank you for your attention. Remember, be open-minded, be patient, and you can do this. Of that I am certain.